Hey guys, this is the recording for Chapter 5, which is all about racism and prejudice. Something certainly we see in our society today. We are going to discuss some of the different types of racism, and at the end we will also discuss maybe some baby steps that we can all start taking to just eradicate this in our country, and starts within ourselves, right? Okay, so first off, I apologize, my notes are over here, so I'll be looking over here a lot. At the individual level, racism and sexism are forms of prejudice and discrimination based upon a person's race or their gender. At the institutional or systemic level, in our culture, racism and sexism involve practices that promote the domination of one group, one racial group or gender group over another. Our definitions, so stereotypes. Remember, social psychology is all about our beliefs, our feelings, and our actions, right? So stereotypes are our beliefs. They're beliefs that we hold about other people. We all hold them. Everybody does. It's stereotypes are ingrained in us, and we don't even realize that they're being ingrained in us. We learn them from everything, from kids' books, from things that we see on television, from things that we hear other people say, from those that are surrounding us. They are just stereotypes are beliefs or associations that we connect to a person or a people group. Prejudice is the negative feelings that we associate with those beliefs. So if we believe one thing and we have a negative feeling towards it, that is prejudice. Discrimination are the acts that one might take based upon those thoughts or feelings. So if we act in a discriminatory way, it is acting based upon those thoughts or feelings. The definitions are all found on pages 155 and 156 in your textbook. Definitely worth going over those. So racism. We have in our country come a very long way, although if you watch the news lately, it certainly doesn't seem like it. We certainly have not come far enough. We are making progress, but in our textbook it says sometimes it feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but sometimes, like we said in class, it feels like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. So the biggest difference now in our society, overt racism is not acceptable, right? You cannot go into Walmart wearing your KKK hood and, without repercussions, right? Like, you're not going to be allowed in there. And hopefully law will be called, or someone will step up and say something. It's not right, and it's not something that in general is allowed in our society at this time, right? That is overt racism. Overt acts are those that people can see, that we do consciously. And in general, in our country, that has been, I wouldn't say fully eradicated, but it is certainly not where it was 50 or 60 years ago. Implicit racism. Let me find so I can just read it. Implicit racism is defined as racism that operates unconsciously and unintentionally. So that is what we probably, in our nation today, when we talk about racism, that is a lot more what we are discussing. It is racism that comes from those stereotypes, the thoughts and feelings that we don't even necessarily realize that we have, that we are acting upon, not even necessarily being aware of our actions. There are a few types of implicit racism. So first, modern racism is more subtle, it's less direct. It occurs when it is safe, socially acceptable, and easy to rationalize. So it sounds crazy to say socially acceptable racism, right? That would really be like discrimination based upon thoughts or feelings. So in class, we use the example of an interviewer. If they are interviewing a white person and they themselves are white, they might sit closer, lean in, have more conversation. That same person, if they interview someone who's black or someone who's Hispanic, they might lean back a couple inches, push themselves back away from the desk, ask less questions. We will get into another reason why that might be, or really what it will cause. But those are forms of implicit racism that we may not even be consciously aware that we're doing. We hear all the time, I'm not racist, or I don't see color. And the thing is, those people in their hearts really probably are not, they're not consciously racist. They're not thinking consciously, I'm better than my black neighbor or than my Mexican neighbor. But what they're failing to realize is that by saying, I'm not racist, I don't see color, that they're not acknowledging the differences, and differences are what make us special, right? So if we're saying we're the same, we're kind of, instead of acknowledging that, hey, you're great on your own, we're trying to bring them to our level because we think we're great on our own, right? So, I don't know if you guys can hear that, it's kind of loud here. So when people say I don't see color, they are not meaning it badly. They're trying to say I don't see a difference, and they really mean it coming from a good place, without realizing the hurt that it can cause, right? Aversive racism occurs when an individual is sincerely fair and open-minded on one hand, and they're truly trying, right? They do not want to be racist, but they hold unconscious and unrecognized stereotypes and prejudices on the other hand. Again, this is something that we all do. We all need to be aware of the prejudices and the stereotypes that we hold. We cannot even begin to change them unless we have an awareness of them, right? I would recommend on that reading, there's some good examples in the textbook. For sake of time, I'm not going to go over them. It kind of occurs, that would be like when more white applicants are chosen over black, or for college admissions when more white applicants are chosen again over blacks. The different tests that are used, if we can rationalize why we chose a white applicant over a black or a Mexican, or, wherever, if we can rationalize why we chose, well, they scored poorly on their SATs. Well, so did the white person, but you still chose the white person over the black person. They truly may not have even realized that they were acting in a discriminatory manner. That is aversive racism. The person has good intentions, but they're acting poorly based upon unrecognized stereotypes and prejudices that they hold. It is very, very hard to determine acts of implicit racism because they're not overt. So the person that is wearing a white hood, that is overt. We can see it. We can say, hey, that is clearly racism. But what about when we don't accept a black applicant? Maybe there were legitimate reasons, right? So it's very hard to determine implicit aversive racism. In fact, it's so hard, we kind of have to do different kinds of tests, and they can do brain scans, but those are about the only ways that a person can really and truly know whether they hold implicit racism or not. I'm going to stop this one. That was a very quick, brief overview on racism. I'm going to move on to sexism.